Yes, great. Yeah. So I welcome you all on behalf of PMI North India chapter for an insightful webinar on meaningful stakeholder engagement. The speaker for today's webinar is Mr. Sandeep Gehlot. Before we start, a brief introduction on Sandeep. Sandeep Gehlot is a highly experienced and accomplished leader in the field of program and project management. He is seasoned technology professional and a strategic thinker with over 2 decades of practical experience. He currently serves as the senior manager of programs at
Suchitra, we are not able to hear you.
am I audible now?
Yeah, there was a complete silence in between.
Okay. So fine. Okay, let me begin again. So am I audible clearly now? Sandeep, can you just
Yeah, you are audible, and I see there are more people waiting in the room.
1 second. Yes, I think I have admitted all and let them join and then maybe we can start again.
Or maybe we allow one more minute to everyone to join and then we start.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, I see a lot of participants are still joining in.
Yes.
Hello everyone. Hi Sandeep. All the best.
Hey Ajanta, good morning. Thank you.
Okay, Sandeep, I think we should start now because
Yeah,
it's
sure.
Yeah, okay. Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the world you are joining in. I welcome you all on behalf of PMI North India chapter for an insightful webinar on meaningful stakeholder engagement. The speaker for today's webinar is Mr. Sandeep Gehlot. Before we start, a brief introduction on Sandeep. Sandeep Gehlot is a highly experienced and accomplished leader in the field of program and project management. He is seasoned technology professional and a strategic thinker with over 2 decades of practical experience. He currently serves as a senior manager of programs at DXC Technology. He is known for his ability to cultivate a positive organizational culture, lead and motivate cross-functional teams, and foster strong collaborations with stakeholders. With a background in global service delivery, business transformation, customer relationship, Sandeep is highly regarded for his management of global technology programs and operations. He has successfully overseen projects related to critical IT environments, transformed infrastructure.
We lost you again, Suchitra.
I think it's getting muted on its own somehow. I don't know. Okay.
Mhm.
So just the last bit of your introduction, Sandeep. Sandeep is proficient in engaging with stakeholders at all levels within the IT enterprise and attain desired outcomes. He has a track record of leading and motivating cross-functional teams to deliver effective results. His impressive career includes multiple roles of companies like DXC, CSC, Wipro, and Tata Elxsi. He is an alumnus of the prestigious Indian Institution of Management, Ahmedabad, also a certified project management professional and agile certified practitioner. Before I give the stage to Sandeep, I have an important information to share with you all. The link of feedback survey will be shared with you at the time of Q&A session. Once you will receive and once you will fill the survey, PDU information will be shared with you. So it just take 2 minutes to fill and submit the survey. Please do that to get your PDU information. So thank you. Enjoy the insightful webinar. And Sandeep, now over to you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction, Suchitra. And I extend my warm welcome to each and every one of you who have joined on Saturday morning. Uh, uh, I don't know whether you have joined from India or from other locations as well, but it truly motivates and encourage everyone here. So if Suchitra, you can confirm you are able to see my screen. Are you
Yes,
able to see it? Okay.
I can see your video, Sandeep.
How about the slide?
No,
Not
slide is
yet.
currently not visible.
Not yet. Can you try again, Sandeep, please?
Okay.
Sharing the screen.
Let me share it again and let me know if it is visible now.
Yes, it is
Clear?
visible.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you all. And let me start with the topic of the webinar today. The topic is the importance of meaningful stakeholder engagement. And if you see, the word meaningful is really highlighted here. Reason behind, stakeholders play a significant role in our project success and failure. Projects that make effective use of stakeholder engagement tends to run smoothly and be more successful. Why? Because when you engage with your stakeholders, they understand and agree with the project approaches and the outcome. On the other hand, uh, the projects which are ineffectively managed or the one which are have ineffective stakeholder engagement frequently experience delay and cost overruns. So, why it is important to have a meaningful stakeholder engagement? It is to have their buy-in, their uh, help in decision making, support at the time of need, and all those things actually help you to ensure or increase the probability of your success of your project. And what is stakeholder engagement actually? It is a systematic identification, analysis, and planning and implementation of the action designed to influence people who matter most to the project success. So it is really, really important for all of us to engage with our stakeholders frequently with clear communication and also to ensure the outcomes of the project. There was a survey which was done by International Journal of Innovative Research and Science. The survey was done in 2015, and the result of that survey clearly highlighted some of the factors which have great influence on proper and effective stakeholder management. Some of the survey result, or I'll just talk about the brief findings of the survey. It talks about managing stakeholders with social responsibilities. It talks about defining and formulating a clear statement of project mission. If you have a clear understanding of the project objective, goals, and if you align with your stakeholders' interest and influence, and then formulate your appropriate strategies to manage stakeholders, that actually builds trust between your project top management and the most engaged stakeholders in the project. And what happens by way of doing this is that you promote a good relationship with them, understand their areas of interest, and prioritize stakeholders by their power and influence on the project. And once you do that, you are well ahead in the game. Right. So, in the next 45 minutes or so, what we will do, we will understand who all are your stakeholders, what is stakeholder engagement. We'll talk about the difference between stakeholder engagement and stakeholder management, though the terms uh, almost are similar, but there is a difference when we say engagement versus management. We'll talk about types of stakeholders, basis their interest influence on this, and then we'll classify those stakeholders into different categories. We will also look at the power interest grid, which will actually help you channelize your energies and effort towards the right communication to the right people at the right time. Followed by that will be stakeholder engagement process. We'll talk about the process of engaging with the stakeholder to ensure that they are fully aligned, they are ready to support, we have their cooperation and collaboration and a shared goal and vision to ensure that the project is a success. Following that will be the key principles of stakeholder engagement. We'll talk about some of the principles while engaging with the stakeholders. And in the last, we'll talk about some of the benefits of managing our stakeholders effectively. Then there will be 15 minutes of Q&A session before we wrap this up. So hope we are all ready and geared up for next 45 minutes. It's going to be really interesting, and I'm sure you all will love this webinar. So who is called a stakeholder? Stakeholder are generally, it can be a person or a specific group of people, each with different desire and need from the project organization. Stakeholder is anyone who has a stake in your project, either through interest, influence, or sometimes both. And your stakeholders can range from your shareholders to your end users, staff, volunteers, government, communities, supplier, vendors, and whatnot. So, what generally happens when you engage with these guys? you- Engaging with these stakeholders help you ensuring the probability of success of the project. And what happens in the stakeholder engagement process? We try to identify and understand and involve people who have a larger stake or a major stake in the outcome of the project. How do we identify those people? We generally look at our organizational chart or structures, and we list out the relevant roles and individual. Why that is important? There might be a direct or indirect impact on some of the individuals, department, or the teams. We review our previous project so that we don't reinvent the wheel. If we are doing the similar kind of project, if somebody has done it, we know there are certain set of group and people who were impacted, and we also know what was the outcome of that impact. Were they supportive? Were they kind of opposing the progress of the project? So you, once you list out the people, you review their roles in there. And how do we do this? We do brainstorm. We sit with the people, SMEs, and we capture the person or group, list them out, put them into an order of their influence and their power. What actually helped us by doing this brainstorming, or we do Ishikawa diagrams, or we look at the previous or historical data, we get a certain set of individual or type of individual, their interest and stake in the project. That is actually defined there. And once you research that data and the roles, you, what you do, you specify your stakeholders in an order on how well do you want to communicate with them, how do you want to consult them, or you prepare a kind of RACI matrix where you actually understand what are their needs and how they should be engaged and involved in your project. Right. So there may be a number of stakeholders which are directly visible, which may not be directly visible, directly impacted, internal stakeholder, external stakeholders, all those. But if you identify them and engage with them, I'm emphasizing on the word engagement. Managing is again you do because of the legal liabilities, or sometimes you want to put a guardrail against the project communication and all those things to ensure that in case of any legal battles you have all those things documented. That is called management, but I'm emphasizing on the word engagement here. Once you engage with these stakeholders who are crucial for the success of the project, by involving, understanding their need and identifying their interest, you can actually impact the quality of the outcome of your project. And that is where effective stakeholder engagement requires a comprehensive approach that includes communication, listening, collaboration, engaging, involving, all those things. So, in this webinar, I'll talk about the importance of stakeholder engagement in strategic planning and offer some tips on how to effectively and meaningfully engage with our key stakeholders in your respective project. Okay, so you would have heard of 4C framework in stakeholder engagement. There are multiple 4C models. If you look at the first column, it talks about customer, competitors, company, and community. Second column talks about communication, collaboration, compassion, commitment. And third one talks about consumer cost, convenience, and communication. Now, stakeholders can be, it's not related just to the project management world. Your stakeholders will be there in any industry, any domain that you work for. It may be your consumer company, it can be a product company, it can be FMCG or anything, any domain. So if you look at the first column, it talks about customer, competitors, company, and community. This 4Cs framework of stakeholder engagement is mostly used in big brands or e-com sites where their customers, what they try to understand, they try to frame their strategies aligning with their customer. And when they say customer, meanings they try to identify needs and preferences of their customer. Competitors, they look at their market positions, they look at the similar product which are available in the market. Company, it talks about the leadership, their will to serve the customer, their staff, and engagement with local communities. So if you first look at, it says customer, the end customer who uses your product is not always the one who makes the purchasing decision. I'm talking about in the scenario where you are serving your stakeholders in a big brand, or you can say a platform or an e-commerce company. For example, parents obviously make purchases for their children. You won't advertise diaper to the baby, right? So here, the end customer, the person or the entity who is using the diaper is the children, but the purchasing decision is with the parent. So who do you influence here? You influence your parents here. On a less obvious note, students buy textbook usually because a professor required them to do so. You would have heard in your like most of us who are here, we have our kids studying in school. Someone will say, okay, go and find HC Verma for a physics book, or MS John for a chemistry book. So where these comes from? These come from either from the school teachers, professors, or the coaching institute. They will say these are the books which are really, really good for you to crack some of the competitive exam. Again, if you see here, who is the customer here? The person who is advertising your product or a service. So student is just a consumer of that product or service, but you are channelizing your engagement strategies towards the customer. Just like I said, parents, here I'm talking about teachers, or for that matter, you can even talk about the pharma industry. You go and seek a medical advice from your doctor, but you don't choose the medicine. It's doctor who prescribe the medicine. Some will give you a paracetamol, some will give you a mix of paracetamol and any other chemical. So what happens in these big brand companies? They look at the need and preferences of the end customer, but their engagement is more towards the person who is actually doing or making the decisions. Right. Now, if you look at the second um, uh, bullet point, which talks about competitors, so they also look at their market positioning. Today, if you see, we have a lot of I would say cars or a lot of cold drinks in the market. Let's pick up a cold drink. If you see, Coca-Cola has a product called Coke, which is the direct competitor for Pepsi. But if you see, it has got another indirect competition as well from some of the energy drinks or fruit juices or even bottled water. So what they do to position themselves better, they engage this 4C framework and they produce similar product to stay in the market. If somebody is taking a product, they are also influenced by the other offering and categories which are available there. So here, if you see in the stakeholder engagement, they are not only looking at customers' need, they are also looking at their competitors. And sometime your competitor may or may not be just a product. It can be a person who tried to poach your staff or leaders. Right, in an IT industry, if you see, there is an anti-poaching policy. If you are working for, say, company X, and your vendor or competitor is company Y, there is always a mandate or a clause. If you want to join company Y, there has to be a break of 6 to 12 months before you join company Y after exiting company A. So this is how the stakeholder engagement strategies are generally defined for the big brands, companies, etc. Now coming on to the second column, which is more relevant to project management. Here it talks about communication, collaboration, compassion, and commitment. Now, what do you mean by communication here? It talks about clear and timely communication. What does that do? It ensures that information is conveyed concisely, promptly to avoid misunderstanding and delays. Encourage active listening to understand others' perspective to address concern and foster collaboration. While we are executing the project or program, there are difference of opinion, difference of interest, a power politics which comes into play. So try to understand what are the intent and expectation of your stakeholder, who may be not very influential, but it can be classified into a negative stakeholder, which can impact or derail the project of your success of the project. So you need to ensure and understand the intent, try to collaborate and find a meaningful or a midway where he or she can, who is sitting on a fence, can become negative to positive stakeholder. So that is where your crisp, clear, and concise communication come into picture. Collaboration, if you see, collaboration is about working together for a common goal. Now, when you say collaboration, it actually emphasizes working together as a cohesive team to achieve project objective goals, encourage teamwork, work on a shared goal, and cross functional collaboration. If you are able to do that, then your, with the way of your communication and collaboration, half of the battle is won. You have actually collaborated or gain the confidence of your stakeholders towards, and you are stepping towards the project success. Third talks about compassion, which is building trust and loyalty. How do you build trust and loyalty of your stakeholders? And stakeholders, as I mentioned in earlier slide, it's just not your teams, it's just not your sponsors, just not your vendors, anybody. It can be anybody. If you work with them with a clear objective or a mission or a goal, you keep them apprised of the informations appropriate at that level at right time. It is a way to engage them and build trust and loyalty of your stakeholders. If you're able to do that, they are more happy to collaborate with you. They are more aware of the project progress, the challenges that lies. Even if that may impact them, they will be happy to help resolve it with clear communication and a bit of negotiation, and sometimes a bit of compromise as well. Now look at commitment. It talks about empathy and building relationship. Right. So stakeholder engagement is something where you want to take everybody along with yourself. It's not just that you have a specific objective or a scope and you will only work on that. Sometimes you have to come to a table, kind of negotiate, understand the impact of what change other person or your stakeholder is asking for, try to analyze the impact on the overall pillars of the project management, your scope, cost, and quality. Suchitra, I see there are people who are waiting in lobby. Okay, thank you. So by way of doing that, and with doing that empathetically, you build long-term relationships, which will not only help you in the execution of this particular project. Once you have that long-term relationship, this relationship will always help you even if you're working on another project or a parallel project, or you are working on something different and you need any help, probably these people will come forward and always extend help to you. The third column, This talks about consumer, cost, convenience, and communication. Now, what is this third column talk about? This is the 4C framework generally used for a marketing brand, right? The goal of marketing is to meet the customer needs and want. What do the customer need and want? And to use 4C model of marketing mix effectively, you actually define your target audience, right? A clear example can be, I can say Mintra, where they just look at the profile of the end users or the people who are browsing the site. They try to understand their needs and preferences, and basis their needs and interest, what they do, they come up with their different product and product range and different mix of colors and combinations. Also, second point which is very important in 4C framework in marketing, it talks about cost, right? While you are coming up with different range of product, are these really cost effective? Is this something that my consumer want to buy or will be willing to buy? So you try to do some analysis there, and then you define your cost segment, or the target, your audience target is actually segmented into different categories. Third is convenience. And what is the convenience here? How fast you can deliver the product or service. See, you have to look at customers' need and interest. If you are aligning and focusing your energies and efforts there and give them the convenience to buy your product, they are more likely to come to you. So, even if I talk about project management framework, if you are able to help and give an extra edge to your stakeholders, probably they are more likely to stay with you, they are more likely to help and collaborate with you. So what generally happens, if you look at all three frameworks in stakeholder engagement, all I can say, many stakeholders can shape your strategy and affect the performance. And that is why some strategies work only for certain situations, as I mentioned in first column, where it was about targeting the people who have decision making power, versus the third one where it's end user whose convenience is actually looked at. So what works in New York might not work in New Delhi. So you'll have to keep aligning your stakeholder engagement strategies basis the 4 C's which are there. So irrespective of which company you are there, whatever project you are executing, you have to align, focus on these 4 C's, right? Does it make sense? All you have to do is integrate 4 C's appropriately for your project success, and then communicate, collaborate, control, and I would say complete the project successfully with more happy customers, and ensuring their needs and interests, wants, and influence are all met. Going forward, now, what is the difference in the stakeholder engagement versus stakeholder uh, engagement and management? So if you look at the difference here, stakeholder engagement is the practice of influencing a variety of outcomes through consultation, communication, negotiation, compromise, and relationship building, right? Whereas what is management? It is a process where you identify people, analyze their role, plan the communication and their involvement accordingly, and implement the actions designed to engage with these entities. So the main difference is about a practice where you practice to engage more stakeholders by way of collaboration, communication, compassion, and all. Management is sometime it's all about safeguarding yourself, right? If you have a proper documentation, if you prepare a RACI matrix, sometime people may or may not look at the emails or the status report that you send to your stakeholders. They just want it because they want to be there in the distribution list, saying that, okay, I have a stake or a say in the process, right? So process is about satisfying the egos of the person who may be influential, or maybe power, or even it may not have a power or influence, but still he feels and perceive that there is something which I can do to impact the outcome of the project. So what you do by way of successful stakeholder engagement, you actually execute your project more professionally. You would have also heard about two terms which says stakeholder mapping and then competency mapping. Right? What is stakeholder mapping? Stakeholder mapping is something similar to management, right? Where you identify, analyze individual and groups with the interest on the project or the outcome of the project, which can either be a product or a service. While what is competency mapping? It focuses on the stakeholder engagement, the first part, where you focus on the skills and knowledge required to address specific challenges which are impacting the execution, success, or quality of the outcome of the project. And generally, what we do, we use both of them simultaneously in combination, right? Whether it's stakeholder engagement or stakeholder management, whether it's stakeholder mapping or a competency mapping, by combining these approaches, a project manager or organizations can better understand the problem context and identify the right people to engage and develop effective solutions. So that is the main difference between the stakeholder engagement practice and process. Now, moving on, if you see what is stakeholder management versus stakeholder engagement. Although stakeholder management can help you achieve various legal and strategic objectives, as I discussed earlier, if you have your documentation ready, and if there is an incident where somebody go and challenge your project or your approach or your style, then probably you have a safeguard which is available. However, stakeholder management process isn't actually designed to control people. If you see stakeholder management, it talks about uh, engaging with stakeholder to ensure their needs, expectation, and concern. Only expecting engagement, or I would say looking at their need and expectation, you develop or design your strategies. Okay, I will engage this person only for this particular thing. For others, probably I won't go to him. Right. And that is the strategically analyzing and prioritizing approach to optimize the project outcome. You are not looking at the project outcome initially, you are trying to manage people by way of defining them or classifying them into different groups. Wherein what is stakeholder engagement? It is about building long lasting relationship. And how do you do it? You are more open and welcoming people to come and contribute towards the project success. It's not about hiding something. It's about giving the right information to right people at right time. And when you do that with open communication and collaboration, you actually gain trust and confidence of your stakeholders. So you try to remove the negativity or something which can have an impact on the success of project. So the difference between management and engagement is management talks about creating a RACI matrix where I'll say, okay, I'll only consult him, but decision will be mine. I'll inform him just because he's involved there in the project in one or other capacity. But stakeholder engagement talks about engaging people, understanding, learning from their expertise, and collaborating with them. What do you do in management? You assess the stakeholders' power, influence, and interest, and what impact they can put onto your project. Basis that you actually identify them, and then you develop a matrix by mapping to prioritize. You will put stakeholders in a list of order where you'll say, okay, he is a person who is highly sensitive. I should always speak to him to get the approvals. Probably you have an impression that okay, he will approve it, but he may or may not be consulting the other person who you feel is less empowered, he may probably go or she may probably go and ask for that person's opinion because they work very closely. For you, you have an impression, but he is taking an opinion from that person. And if that person is not informed, probably that can have a negative impact. What happens is stakeholder engagement. Uh, if you involve them in active decision making and also help them understand the project progress and help them engage, you give them a platform and opportunity to come and give the ideas. It's not that their ideas are bad. It's always good to listen to the ideas and then argue in a manner which is not offending, saying that, okay, I hear you. My logic of following this approach or doing or executing project this way is this, and what you are doing is this. Let's work together and see if there is a way where we can collaborate, or you think I am doing wrong, or if you think my approach is good. So that is the way when you engage people in the this process, stakeholder engagement process. So if you look at the management, this is not designed to influence or control the people. Engagement practice is actually defined, or I would say developed in a way where you influence people by way of your leadership skill, by way of your communication skill, by way of engaging and appreciating each other. You actually control people and their emotions and generate that energy towards success of your project. Now, there are 7 types of stakeholders according to salience model. This salience model was actually developed by 3 people, Ronald Michel, Bradley Alley, and Donna Wood in 1997. A bit complex model of stakeholder mapping. What it does, it actually helps determine which stakeholder deserve the most attention and communication effort. You remember I said when you engage with people, you actually understand, not you define that, okay, I'll only communicate with this person by way of stakeholder management process. By way of engagement, you actually understand who is the person who deserves the most attention, and my communication efforts and channels should be open to him or her. This model is also based on 4 key concepts, which are salience, power, legitimacy, and urgency. And when I say salience, it refers to the prominence or the importance of a stakeholder in the eyes of project manager. See, here I'm saying project manager is the person who is actually analyzing and understanding the importance of the stakeholder in his eyes, not from the literature perspective, from the process perspective, or from the historical data perspective. Second concept is about power. And what is power? It is the degree of control that the stakeholder has over the project. It is very important to understand who has high power, who has low power. I'll talk about it when I go into the classification mode. Third is legitimacy. And the perceived legitimacy of stakeholders' right to the project, if that is considered, you have a better way to identify your project. Urgency, the last concept and salience model, it talks about the level of urgency that stakeholder claims present to the organization, a degree to which stakeholder needs or expectation requires immediate attention. So on these 4 key concepts, the stakeholders are defined in 7 different types. If you see, first one talks about dormant, who has high legitimacy, low power, and low urgency. These stakeholders become relevant if their power or urgency increases. Right. If you have done a stakeholder management process, you have kept somebody at a lower priority. But if the situation changes, what happens? Person become dominant from dormant. Discretionary, where person has low legitimacy, but he has or she has high power, the urgency may be low. These stakeholders may influence, but may not be actively engaged. Right. So depending upon what is the impact uh, of this project or project's outcome or service on them, they will become active or inactive. Similarly, you have demanding, dangerous, definitive, and dependent, who have different level of their power, different legitimacy and urgency. Basis that, your project's sponsors are generally classified into two things: negative stakeholder or positive stakeholder, right? This classification may change over a period of time. Somebody who is a positive stakeholder today, an advocate for the project, may get offended or may have different interest over a period of time. He can switch to negative stakeholders. Similarly, negative stakeholders who is always criticizing the approach, the product, the process, he may also sometimes switch the fence, looking at the way you are engaging with them. So it's all about how you engage with your stakeholders. Basis these four key parameters: salience, power, legitimacy, and urgency. And if you keep monitoring them over a period of time, it is always helpful for you to understand the mindset of your stakeholders. And according to all these attributes, uh, you can always identify people back and forth in different categories. Benefit of doing the salience model is you prioritize people and determine which stakeholders to focus on and how to engage with them, right? You may have your communication plan, but looking at these model, it's a bit complex. You may want to change your communication plan. We have been talking about waterfall methodologies. We have agile methodologies as well. Agile says embrace the change early in this stage. So when you do a mix of waterfall and agile project, and you adjust your stakeholder engagement strategies, you are more likely to be successful project manager, and you are increasing the probability of your success of your project. This model also helps to allocate resources efficiently by focusing on the most influential and urgent stakeholder. And last but not least, it helps to build better relationship with your stakeholders. Right. This model may have some benefit, it has some limitation too. And what are those limitations? There may be an element of subjectivity. And when I say subjectivity, this subjectivity come into the assessment of power. See, ultimately, who is doing it? As a project manager, you are doing it. There can be subjectivity in your assessment of the power, legitimacy, and urgency of the stakeholder. It can be complex, time consuming, because you may or may not have worked with similar stakeholders in past, and it may take time for you to understand the mindset, the intent, and the influence of the stakeholder. So it may be a bit time consuming process to implement, and it may not always capture the dynamics in the stakeholder relationship, right? So though it's very good, it has some limitations as well, and that is where project manager has to do a juggling between his strategies and management style, processes, and practices. Now I think I still have five minutes, Suchitra. I think I just want to complete some or more slides, right? So stakeholder classification, if you see, we have talked about salience method. We have, by way of using it on the legitimacy, urgency, and power, we can define our stakeholders or classify them under stakeholder: internal stakeholder, external stakeholder, direct stakeholder, indirect, and primary and secondary. If you see, internal stakeholder are the people who are directly impacted by this project or the product or a service or a new process which is defined. It can be your staff, it can be your department or functional managers as well. External person is who is immediately out of the organization but is impacted by the outcome of the project. It can be your vendors, suppliers, negotiator, I would say regulators, and investor, or some of the community groups as well. Direct and indirect classification happens by way of like uh, who are actively involved. A person who has sponsored or authorizes this project is the direct impacted person. So your project sponsors, team members who are working on it, their careers are dependent on the success of this project. Rewards and recognition, or maybe a termination, they are all dependent on the success of this critical project. So they are the key example of direct stakeholders. Similarly, if you look at indirect stakeholders, they are the people who are the end users, uh, impacted by the new system or local communities or groups, which may have direct, indirect impact. Today, if I talk about uh, what you see, I don't want to politicize anything, but by way of I would say war or other thing, what happens? There are people who get impacted, not just soldiers, but the civilians as well. Similarly, if you talk about primary stakeholders, they are the employees, clients, your shareholders. Secondary stakeholders, again, some of the bodies which may influence by putting some extra regulations, etc. So all these are the classification derived from salience model, looking at their power, legitimacy, and urgency. Now, quickly, stakeholder power interest grid. This is again a technique which was developed by Fran Ackerman and Colin Eden. And this strategy is this tool is actually discussed in their book, which is called Making Strategies. This tool is also sometimes known as Mendelow's matrix. What you do in this, again, you have mapped the stakeholder groups into onto two axes. One is your power, and your x-axis is interest. Basis that, what you do, a person with a higher power or higher interest, you may want to always involve him or her in decision making, uh, talking about problems, challenges, any resource requirement. If you look at person who has low power, high interest, probably you will look at their interest, and you will focus on satisfying their need. High power, low interest, this is again a group where you will go and engage with them. So what happens? High power, low interest, this is the group which is important to monitor, right? So you will always monitor and satisfy them. Apologies, I think I moved a slide bit fast. Yeah. And fourth one is low power, low interest. You generally keep your communication on so that they are aware of what is happening in the project, because they are one or other way impacted by the project. Not they are involved directly, but these are the people who have low interest, low influence, and a simple communication is enough for them in most of the instances. So this is how you sometime put them into grid basis their power, interest, and influence. The objective is to ensure that you are making sure that all players are happy. Some may be happy just with the receiving the communication. Some may be happy with being consulted. Some may be happy with just uh, 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 ensuring that okay, their interests are made and there are people who make decisions. Right. So always try to engage people basis on this mapping, which is also called as Mendelow's matrix. Now, stakeholder engagement process. What happens? It's a 5-step process which talks about identification, planning, engagement planning, focusing on engaging stakeholders, integration into decision making, and monitoring evaluation. Now, what happens? If you look at this process, it is essential to think broadly at this stage to avoid overlooking hidden stakeholders whose influence may be immediately visible or may not be visible. So, what you do? Uh, you try to find people, their roles and interest. There may be possibility that you may be able to identify. There are chances you are not able to identify the person, but by way of engaging them, sometimes you look at their interaction uh, with the project, and then you start working with them. Third, if you see focusing on engaging, it talks about emphasizing on inclusivity, right? So ensuring that all the voices are heard. It's not that the person who is loudest in the room has the right idea, right? So you need to engage people. poke them and ensure that they are involved. Even if they are shy, they are not able to make their point, they may have a better point or a better solution to the problem statement. So ensure you emphasize on inclusivity. Fourth is integrate into decision making. What is this? You must integrate the finding into the governance and strategy. So whatever you have discovered so far, put it into your operational strategies. This will ensure that your stakeholders' concern and expectations are all addressed in a meaningful and substantial way. Fourth is monitoring and evaluation. This is again one person who is your positive stakeholder, it may turn negative. So you need to improve the effectiveness of the stakeholder engagement process over a period of time. It's always iterating, and it's throughout the life cycle of the project that you have to do. Look at their feedback, understand the impact on your project outcomes, and appropriately respond back to the stakeholders, and change your stakeholder matrices, grids to ensure that right people are engaged at right time. Key principle of stakeholder engagement, I would say, first point is gather information about your stakeholders. Understand understand who the people you would be working with. Put effort to ensure the intended message is understood and the desired response is achieved. So have a crisp and clear communication. Consult early and often. If you have ever felt, I wish I would have known that at the start of the project, right? So don't get into a situation where you don't consult anyone and it's a surprise at the 11th hour. Also understand that they are human, and they do not always behave in a rational or I would say reasonable or consistent predictable way. So operate with an awareness of human feeling and potential personal agendas. Understanding the root cause of stakeholder behavior can actually help you to approach people in a better way towards a common goal, to work together and to maintain a productive relationship. Plan it. Careful planning before engaging stakeholder can bring significant benefit. So if you have understood their power, influence, their legitimacy and urgency, then you can plan it better. And how can you do it? It is with the way of regular meetings, understanding the org structure, sending minutes of meeting, and then looking at their responses, whether it's formal, informal one. And then another key principle is relationship are key. So what you do, if you have a better relationship, probably across the project environment, you can minimize the uncertainty, increase the speed of problem solving and decision making. Stakeholders are important influential resources and should be treated as potential source of risk and opportunity. So it is also as part of your risk management. Their influence and interest can pose a risk and or even sometimes an opportunity. So monitor them. Sometimes you have to compromise some of the solution, the, and you have to assess the relative importance of stakeholders to establish a weighted hierarchy, right? So basis that sometimes you have to compromise on some of the solution. As a leader of the project, it is your judgment to understand what this solution is in relationship with the decision being communicated to other parties where appropriate. So compromise sometime is also good. Now, what is understand what success is? It is what your stakeholder perceive the success to be. So look from their angle. Understand what do they actually define success as? What are they trying to achieve with the help of execution of this project? So if you align your project objective goals with their vision and mission, probably you have better chances to um, you know, execute your project successfully and take responsibilities. See, it is not just the project manager who has to do everything. It is a responsibility of the entire team to do the stakeholder engagement process. Now, some of the benefits, I know, Suchitra, I'm almost there. I'll just talk about like if you engage meaningfully with your stakeholder, these are some of the benefits. You are able to make better decisions. You can build trust and confidence of your stakeholders. You can reduce the risk and delays by way of engaging them. You get their buy-in faster, quicker, support, and you can also improve the reputation. If you are engaging well with your stakeholders, there are less chances that you get into any kind of dispute, and you get repeat business, and also you can improve your reputation as well, boost accountability and sustainability. Uh, by stakeholder who are involved and keeping them informed, you can help keep your project and organization on track to deliver what you promise. So these are some of the benefits of engaging effectively, meaningfully with your stakeholders. And why bother, right? Understanding stakeholder dynamics enable better decision making, increases trust, foster productivity, and minimizes uncertainty and help improves your project delivery. So learn and understand who is who in the project or in the company, in the org structure. There's a lot to learn from business leaders. Engage with them frequently. Be empathetic while translating stakeholders' expectations. Focus on clear communication. Participate in conversation with executive sponsors. See, leaders love to get engaged. So cash on or grab those opportunities where your leaders are ready to listen. Once you get into more meaningful discussion with them, probably you build more trust and confidence. Put effort to develop your facilitation and conflict resolution skills. So that is the reason I say go for stakeholder engagement as a practice. While stakeholder management is also important, I'm not saying these two terms are different. They are somewhat similar, but engaging helps you build more better relationship or long lasting relationship, and that actually helps to deliver your project on time with quality as per the expectation and needs and interests of your stakeholders. So with that, I think I'm done with my presentation. I'm happy to take if there are any questions, comments from the audience. Over to
Yes,
you, Suchitra.
yes, thanks, Sandeep. I think that's a very powerful presentation. Whether it is your team, who is your internal stakeholder, or the project sponsor, who is the influential stakeholder, I think at every step, stakeholder engagement and collaboration is really important. So yes, we have certain very interesting questions that have been raised by the audience, and I will start with the one which is, I think we see it time and again in our
Mhm.
projects. So the question is, how do you manage stakeholders who are disengaged during the early stages of a project, but become highly involved and demanding as the deadline approaches, sometimes even shifting blame to other stakeholders despite having a clear communication matrix in place?
Okay, very good question, I would say. And this is a real life situation that almost all the project managers face, right?
Sandeep, Sandeep, sorry, I'll interject. Sujitra, since a lot of people have stayed the whole hour, let's give them the feedback form so they don't miss out on PDUs. Some people might have a hard deadline. Carry
Done.
on.
I've,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I'll just stop sharing and you can present your screen, Suchitra, while I'm answering the question. Is that okay?
Yeah, I have also shared the feedback survey form in the chat, so I think they can, all the participants can access it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So to answer to that question, see, that is where I said encourage inclusivity. And what happens if you look at the stakeholder grouping or classification, there might be people who are only falling under the category of informed, or I would say consulted. So always look at what is best in interest of your project. Don't go overboard with some of the power and egos. It's always good to understand the intent of the person, even if he or she is coming back at the last stage of the project, right? Understand the intent, understand the impact on your project objectives. Listen him or her. M- It may be a good idea, whatever he or she is suggesting, even to accept that idea towards the end of the project may enhance the quality of your project. So, what happens? People get into an ego mode. They restrain uh, uh, restrain from speaking to these people, I would highly encourage, go speak to them. Go and have a coffee, or a, I would say a chit chat, one to one, formal or informal. Give them the importance that they need. Sometimes it's just the importance that they look forward to while you are executing the project. So it's not always a negative idea to reduce somebody to corner or push him to corner and then think from a project that, okay, I'm at the stage where I cannot accept the changes. So be open, honest, and include each and everyone. As I mentioned, there are people who will be silent, but they may have a better idea. So always appreciate people coming up, speaking up, try to get into a productive discussion, engage with them, and try to understand their intent. Does that help that question?
Yes, I think so. Yes. Um, the next question is, when one stakeholder is like very high power and zero brains, how do you manage the stakeholders?
So when you say high power and zero brains, see, it's very highly unlikely that a person will be sitting at a position where he doesn't have a brain. He may have a different interest, right? So I would say it's very immature to think that a person doesn't have a brain. He is there by virtue of his skill or uh, maybe I would say experience. So handling those person is bit tricky because they are into high position and power, right? So you need to listen to them first before you go and put your I would say perspective. Try to understand what they are trying to say and what they are trying to achieve. And if you have a right logic and rationale to get into a meaningful discussion with them, say, I'll tell you, people even at high power, if you get into a productive discussion, it's not that they always look for a yes man. They look for people with the right logic and rationale, and how you are aligning your uh, I would say discussion towards the project objective or the organization goal. If you talk in the same language that they understand or they want to hear out, probably it's always a better, you get a solution, immediate solution, I would say.
Yeah. Right. So, though you have already explained it, but I'm still, because someone asked the question, any 2 to 3 key suggestions how one can address egoistic issues of some stakeholders in interest of timely, smooth execution of a project?
Yeah, so I would say keep your head outside the room, even if you are at higher authority, right? I'll give you an example of my management training at IIM Ahmedabad. We had a people where they were from a defense background, they were from collectorate, they were from police, they were from intelligence, and they were from pharma and everyone. The first thing which we were told, while you are working as a team, keep your head and egos outside. So I would always say, see, be empathetic, understand the intent and interest of the person. It's not always that what you are thinking is right. You might be right in your approach. There can always be a better ways of working. So engage, include people, involve people, and do a brainstorming with right approach, not to demean anyone, but to find a better solution or negotiation to a place, to a position where you have a win-win situation for both of you, right? So that is what would my suggestion be.
Okay. I think we don't have much time, so it will be only last two questions. Ruchika has asked, technical leads expect PMs to have SME understanding. However, we are not having such level of understanding. How can we engage technical leads?
Yeah, so and this is very true in today's IT or ITES environment. See, technical expert will always have a better understanding of the environment of your client. So what I would say, give them the importance, let them speak in your client meetings, and you also as a project manager understand terminology and at least the overview of the technology that you are doing it, so that it's not always that one person is speaking overpowering you. There are some times where you need to stop and help progress the discussions in the direction the client want, right? But empower your people to speak up, present to client. It's not that it's only project manager who is entitled to project everything. See, when it comes to success, it goes to your team. When it comes to blame or any impediment, it's project manager who has to come and take the lead, right? So empower them by allowing them to speak, present in customer meeting, brainstorm, help their ideas, help them to come forward and grow your team in terms of technology and all. So take them as a mentors, right? So by involving people at right place, you can always have a good mix of, I would say, authority as well as engagement of the teams.
Yeah, just one last question. How are suppliers stakeholders?
See, suppliers as stakeholder. I can give an example of Tata Nano project, right? Uh, the project was meant to be set up in West Bengal, and suppliers were local suppliers who were getting benefited out of it. But because of the community and the local politics, Tata moved the entire project to Gujarat. Now, what happened to those local suppliers? Either if they want to stay in contact with the company, they will have to transport their material to a longer distance rather than at a local, I would say, shorter distance. So they are also impacted by the decisions that you take. So they also have a stake. So suppliers are also, I can take another example. You have subcontractors in most of the organizations, right? It's not that you do everything. You are good at doing something, but you are not good at something. You transfer risk to your contractors, subcontractors. Suppliers are working there. If they do not have access to the environment, how will they perform? So they too are interested in the success of the project, but you have to empower them. So one or other way, they are also impacted. They are also your stakeholders.
Yeah, correct. Thank you so much. Amit has also asked a question, but because of paucity of time, I think we'll have to, pause the webinar here. Amit, I would encourage you to reach out to Sandeep directly via LinkedIn or the, coordinates that he has shared on his last line. Now, I think I will just, I would like to thanks Sandeep for a very informative and insightful presentation. Sandeep, thank you very much. And just wanted to let everyone know that PMI North India chapter is honored to plant a tree, for Sandeep Gehlot, who has shared his knowledge bites with us today. Thanks a lot, Sandeep.
Thank you so much for giving this opportunity and having me here today. And my sincere gratitude to PMI North India chapter and all the participants who have joined today on a Saturday morning. So thank you so much. I'm truly honored and privileged to be part of this community.
Likewise, Sandeep. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for joining in and sparing your Saturday, weekend to PMI North India chapter. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Suchitra, hello, Suchitra.
Yes.
Yeah, I entered the PMI PDU code, and it says that's a invalid code.
Sorry.
Maybe try again, Neeraj. It is
Okay.
It is not invalid. I got the approval from PMI for the same.
Yeah.
And Suchitra, maybe you can check if there is a clerical error in typing it out. You can check that.
Okay.
Thank you, Sandeep.
Thank you, everyone. Truly appreciate your participation here today. Thank you.
Where is the code shared?
So as you provide the feedback, the code will appear on your screen.
Well, it did
So
not.
you may want to put the link again.
I gave the feedback, but I see nothing popped up.
It says thank you for your feedback, and here is the PDU code.
Well, I shut it down.
Okay, so we will message you separately.
Okay, thanks. So I'm.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Sandeep.
Thank you, Nilima. Thank you, Suchitra, and the
Thank
entire
you.
PMI-NIC board. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for participating.